Hello and welcome to Run It Back on the Raptors Republic Network. I'm your host, Zulfi Sheikh, joined by Coty Wiles. No Kyle Ramnarine today. He had something pop up, unfortunately, but we are going to hold it down as best we can. Coty, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, my man? We're talking Raptors basketball, so it's always a good time.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Also, I like Z. I don't think I've heard that from you before. It's a bit of
I,
it threw me off a little bit for a second, but I like it.
I was gonna mention it when we first joined the call up here, but I thought I'd wait till we hit record. So hey, we're gonna get the energy pumping, right?
Hell yeah. Okay, I love to hear it. But before we get talking about Raptors basketball, like always, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Give us your feedback. We want to hear your voice. And stay tuned with the Raptors Republic YouTube channel for some of your best coverage on the team. And speaking of, we want to find ways to get better with our coverage, and we want your voice to be heard. Like I like to always say, this is a community, and what you have to say about it is super important, especially for new faces like myself and Coty. That type of information is invaluable. So all we're asking is 2 minutes of your time. Raptors Republic is running a survey until the end of the month, November 30th. And like I said, 2 minutes or 120 seconds to give us some feedback on ways to improve. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, and how Raptors Republic can become the go-to spot for your coverage needs moving forward. And we will make it worth your while. Raptors Republic does have several $250 gift cards to give away. And if you give us 2 minutes of your time, you could potentially be walking away $250 richer. And Coty, the Raptors have a lot of fire merch these days. They have the Vince Carter throwback classic jerseys. There's the new City Edition Dino Dunk jerseys that people have just seen recently being unveiled. So if you want to get your hands on it, it can be a lot easier if you fill out the survey and you get a chance to win those $250. The link in the description on YouTube and the podcast feeds will have all your details, or on the Raptors Republic website. Again, 2 minutes of your time until November 30th to fill out the survey, and it would go a very long way for us to get better with our coverage. But let's not take any more time away from what we do here on Run It Back. We're going to talk about the Raptors' busy week of action, the 905 report as always, and then we'll take a peek at the schedule moving forward. So let's run it back. Like always, we kick things off by recapping action for the entire week. And despite some truly fun hoops, the bad news is that it was yet another winless week for the Raptors. That's right, losing games to the Bucks, Pistons, and Celtics in overtime. Now the good news is that as the week went on, the games truly got better and better. Starting in Milwaukee, the Raptors took on Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks on the first night of NBA Cup group stage action. Now, despite Milwaukee being the better squad on paper, they only had 2 wins like the Raptors to that point and were without Damian Lillard as he missed a game with a concussion. Now, on the Toronto side of things, they were also without their starting point guard, as hours before the game, the Raptors announced that Emmanuel Quickley would miss time with yet another injury. Now, the starting guard suffered a partially torn UCL despite not throwing many fastballs for the Raptors, and is scheduled to miss at least a week before another update. It's the latest in a slew of injuries that's resulted in IQ playing just 3 games so far this season, fresh off his new deal. Just a tough start overall for the franchise point guard. Now, once action did get underway, it was a back and forth contest early on, as the Raptors were putting up a valiant defensive effort, while Grady Dick was taking care of things on offense. The sophomore set a career high in scoring for the 4th time this season, as he finished with 32 points, and 22 of those came in the first half. He was doing it at all 3 levels like he's gotten accustomed to this season, hitting 4 of 10 threes while also earning a career best 60 in free throws and nailing 14 of them. Now, Dick and the Raptors did trail by 11 at halftime, but an 11-0 run to start the third quarter knotted things up really quickly. But unfortunately, the Raptors then ran out of gas as they gave up an 11-2 run the other way. And while the Bucks were held under 100 points for the game and shot just 28% from beyond the arc, Giannis was doing his thing down low. He finished with 23 points, and all 9 of his makes came right underneath the basket as he and the Bucks handed the Raptors their first NBA Cup loss of the season. From there, the Raptors returned home to host the Detroit Pistons and unveil their own NBA Cup court. Now, I think most fans can agree, it's one of the better court designs across the NBA, and another reminder, the purple needs to come back for good to the Raptors color scheme. Now, the purple intensifying towards the middle, mixed in with the Dino pinstripes, and then contrasted with the red logo, I think is a perfect balance of old and new. Now, as for the basketball action, the new court unfortunately didn't do much for the Raptors early on in this one. In fact, the offense was pretty abysmal in the first half and for most of the game, as the Raptors shot 36 and 26% from the field and 3-point line. Now, thankfully, their improved defense as of late stepped up and kept things close as they only trailed by 3 points at halftime. And following the break, after a Cardinal official performance at halftime, I think the Raptors got a bit of a boost because the defense held Detroit to just 18 points. And then big man Jakob Poeltl got pretty busy. He scored 9 of his team high 25 points in the quarter, and he was dominant against Detroit's bigs all game. And he did have 20 rebounds for a little bit, but the box score correction wiped that away. He ended with 18, but he was still the Raptors' best player all night, undoubtedly. Now, unfortunately for the Raps, their lead heading into the fourth disappeared pretty quickly as two separate 7-0 and 9-0 runs by the Pistons gave them a quick 9-point lead midway through the frame that Toronto just unfortunately could not climb back from. And while the Raptors did make things interesting late, they weren't able to execute when they needed it most. With Toronto trailing by just 2 points, RJ Barrett got to the basket and he threw a slick pass to Gradey Dick in the corner, and it would have been Barrett's 8th assist on the night, but unfortunately the ball just rattled out. Now, Dick did get one more look to force overtime, but that too missed. The sophomore really struggled all night from beyond the arc, finishing 1 of 10 from deep as the Raptors dropped to 0-2 in the NBA Cup group stage. And with 2 losses and a minus 18-point differential, the Raps' chances of advancing are all but squashed. From there, the Raptors jetted off to visit the defending champion Boston Celtics on the second night of a back-to-back. Not the easiest task, and at least early on, the quick turnaround was having an impact. The Celtics quickly, and I mean very quickly, got up double digits thanks to a 10-0 run. Now, thankfully, the Raptors did respond against the champs, going on a 14-6 run of their own, making shots from all over the floor while the defense was stepping up yet again. And if it wasn't already clear, the theme of the week for the Raptors was defense. The Celtics entered the night taking and making the most threes a game, but the Raptors' ball pressure defense was causing them issues. Boston was held to 8 for 27 from deep in the first half, while Toronto got busy in the paint. And once again, it was Jakob Poeltl doing a ton of damage. He finished with a career-high 35 points, and most of those looks came courtesy of his connection with RJ Barrett. The duo were feeding each other all night. Jakob's screens were opening up lanes for Barrett, and he was finding the big man for 7 of his career-high 15 assists just to Jakob Poeltl. Now, Barrett also finished with 25 points and 10 rebounds for his first career triple-double, and he became the first Canadian to record a 25-point, 15 assist, and 10 rebound game. He's the Maple Mamba for a reason, folks. Now, the champs didn't buckle though, however. Barrett got a layup to fall in the late stages of regulation, but missed a crucial free throw, and the Celtics wasted 0 time tying the ballgame up at 114. Now, Tatum did miss a game-winning attempt at the end of regulation, but in overtime, he got his opportunity to play hero. After Barrett missed a layup attempt the possession prior, Tatum got the ball for Boston, and while Toronto did, to their credit, blow up what appeared to be a pass going to Jaylen Brown, Tatum took care of things all by himself. He nailed an impressive deep three-pointer over Ochai Agbaji right at the buzzer for the win. Just pure heartbreak for Toronto as JT finished with 24 points on that game-winning shot. It is worth mentioning, though, that the NBA's last 2-minute report the next day concluded that Tatum did in fact travel before his final shot, shuffling his feet. But apparently the Raptors also got away with Davion Mitchell fouling Brown on that earlier fall, according to the NBA at least. The thing is, none of that changes the outcome, however, as the Raptors can't come up with a win and then eventually make it 7 straight losses in a row and stay winless on the road. Now they're 0-8 and the only team in the NBA without a road win. Their worst road start since 1997 and 98. Now Toronto falls to 2-12 overall on the season and remain last place in the Eastern Conference and the overall NBA standings. Now let's break it all down. All right, Kyle, 3 games this week, like we just saw. Unfortunately, no wins. A lot of fun basketball, though, and a lot to talk about coming out of it. So I guess a simple question to start off for you is, what was your biggest takeaway from this week?
It's the perfect tank, Z. It's like I say this every week, but it just they keep doing the perfect take. Like, okay, so we're recording this the day after the Jason Tatum dagger in overtime against the Raptors. But hey, that's the defending champions and the Raptors with no Emmanuel Quickley, no Scottie Barnes, no Kelly Olynyk, no Bruce Brown, no Jacoby Walter are going toe-to-toe with the defending champions. I mean, it really is the perfect tank. They're 1-7 in close games. The fact they've had 8 close games is wild. They're 9-5 against the spread. Yeah. And their actual record is 2-12. So for all the for all the people who like to dabble on the gambling, Hey, 9-5
Good
against the
money.
spread. I mean, and if you just watch them play, it really is a good number to show that they're in these games, man. Like they are fighting tooth and nail. They are trying. They're really trying, and you can see the development. But one thing to keep an eye out for, I think, or one thing that's taken away from me is on the road. They haven't won on the road yet. I believe they're the only team in the NBA to not have won on the road, and it's the first time they start 0-8 since 1997, 1998, which, as pointed out in his latest game recap after the Celtics game, was the year they selected the year they selected Antoine Jameson and traded it for Vince Carter. So hey, it's all like full circle, man. It's kind of crazy how, doing all the Vince Carter thing. I mean, this it's a random stat, but it's just funny. But yeah, winless on the road.
Yeah, it's been a tough stretch for them on the road. Obviously, it is harder to play away from your home barn, and that's kind of normal, especially for young teams. But you still want to see them kind of develop a little bit in that regard. I do like to say I'm completely in on this idea of it being one of the most fun tanks there is. And I know you're probably going to call me like being the practical guy that I am. Like, it's okay to win a game once in a while. I'll say that. I
Yeah,
know there's a
yeah.
lot of people who will go like, I've seen on social media, especially after every loss, being like, this is perfect. We're completely happy with it. And I know, like, for the grand scheme of things, it is important and it does play a role. It's okay to win once in a while. And I think that's also part of building good habits. But what I will say in terms of building habits through this stretch, especially the last couple of games against Detroit and Boston, is the defense has really stepped up for the Raptors. That is one of my takeaways. They, against Milwaukee and Detroit, you held them both under 100 points. Against the Celtics, they're known to be the one of the top 3-point shooting teams in the league. They take the most threes. They had almost 30 in the first half, and the Raptors' perimeter defense has been their focus. And they kind of stepped up to the plate to take on that challenge against the Boston Celtics. And I know on that last play, Jason Tatum hit that dagger, but they blew up that possession's intended plan with Jaylen Brown coming across. He falls over, and then Jason Tatum just hit a ridiculous shot. Like, tip your hat to him and call it a day. I don't think it was even all that bad defense by Ochai Agbaji on that possession. So the defense is starting to step up, and the losing is a lot more palatable when the games are close, and you see them improving through it. Again, less fouling has happened recently. The turnovers aren't as ugly, and the defense is starting to do stuff. So the losing is a lot more digestible in that regard because those habits are building, and I think we're all seeing it, Coty.
I mean, yeah. So you mentioned the defense got a bit better this week. They no longer have the worst defense in the NBA. I believe they came into the week 30th out of 30 teams. Now they're 28th. So it's not like it's they're, clapping people down, but you could see it in the ball this week. I mean, I don't think the Pistons touched 100 points. I mean, against the Celtics, I thought they played pretty well. Even for it going to OT, I would say the point total was relatively low in today's NBA. The offense has gone a bit worse this week, just pure numbers wise.
Hmm.
Slipping down to 19th, they were top 12, I believe, at one point. I'm not maybe like a week and a half ago. So, and that I believe is tied to, RJ Barrett and Grady Dick having some ups and downs. Like, where were you at with? I mean, Grady specifically last game or last night against Boston, bit of a rough go for him, and that's got to be tied to like, he's just higher up on the scouting report, and that's just Derek White being Derek White.
Yes,
Like,
Derek White is going to do that to a lot of folks in this league. I think that's part of it as well. But
so yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the shots might have not been falling, but you can already see the gears turning about how to counter it. He was making some
Mhm.
really nice passes, and Grady's always going to be moving off ball. So I feel like he'll figure it out as the time goes, but that's just the next step, right? Once you become an established scorer, then you got to figure out ways to attack better defenders and then play off of that. So I think he's in the process of learning that.
Yeah, I think you're seeing it for both him and RJ Barrett, kind of figuring out what it's like being at the top of the food chain. The scouting report is putting them right at number one and number two. They're getting all the defensive attention for the most part, and it's been a challenge in some games, and it's been a bit of a demarcation point. I've seen that it basically from before that 5 game road trip to after, the numbers have gone down for both of them in terms of scoring. Their field goal percentage has gone down, turnovers have ticked up a little bit, and like for Gray specifically, he's making a couple less threes. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think a part of it is just how much pressure they're facing, and that's natural. I think fatigue is playing a part of it as well, which is how much these two are doing. But I think right now it's been positive in the sense that you saw that rough stretch from them in regards Gradey kind of against Boston, RJ Barrett more so through that road trip. And then you've seen where they've adjusted. RJ Barrett against the Pistons, he kind of got back to being simple with his playmaking on his offense. He wasn't trying to do too much with his reads. And then against the Celtics, a career high 15 assists after he was just kind of understanding how to play that game. Jakob Poeltl was having a really good game. Over half of RJ's assists basically just came to Jakob Poeltl feeding him inside and letting him do his thing. Again, that is simple basketball. That's understanding who's the hot hand and kind of going from there. Gradey Dick, like you mentioned, Coty. Yeah, Derek White kind of draped all over him for the most part, and he tried to counter by kind of attacking close. That's how he does, making those passes either to cutters or the people outside. Again, keeping it simple, doing what you can to adjust. Now we're kind of seeing those adjustments happening in real time and it's starting to pick up. But what I wanted to ask you, and the question that popped up in my head is like, are the Raptors truly just asking too much of these two right now? And you can say that maybe it's just because they have no choice, but like it's really early in the season. We're not even 20 games in, and you're already seeing fatigue play a factor, in my opinion. Gradey is near the top of the league in miles traveled. He definitely is on the top of the team for that. We know his activity is super important. And RJ Barrett has basically been given the ball every time down the floor and be like, here, try to make something happen. And is that good for them? Is that bad? Or is it just too much right now? And is it going to cost them in the long run?
I think I tend to lean that it's okay. Um, I like to have the information knowing what these guys look like at this stage in their careers as number one and number two guys. And yeah, they are getting tired now. Like it's been 14 games basically, like I mean, Scottie played a couple. I mean, quickly he's played like how many minutes this year? Um, they have really been the the go-to guys. And now Pirtle's kind of stepped up into a hey, career high 35 last night, and now he's all of a sudden, maybe taking some of that load off just because, especially with Gradey, especially last night, you could see it was Derek White really was making him, you know, the fatigue was coming out a lot.
Mm.
But I tend to lean, I like to see what these guys could do with more creation. Like we wouldn't be able to see what Grady Dick set, what, four career highs this season already, if Scottie and Quickly would be out. Now, I'm not like you never want to see guys go out, right? But silver lining, we were able to see the stepped up from Grady. We were able to see the stepped up playmaking flash or not flashes. It's just strides he's made now. Barrett, like you mentioned, 15 assists last night, first career triple double, 25, 15, and 10. I believe that's the first Canadian ever to do that. I believe
Yeah.
Sportsnet stats I saw say that. So it might affect their conditioning long term this season, but you would hope once Scottie, Batman, Arthur, whatever you want to say, returns, once IQ comes back, once Bruce Brown, Kelly, once they actually have a full rotation, I'm sure it'll all equal itself out. So I tend to say, hey, I love to see what these guys got right now while they have the opportunity. And to be fair, I think they've done a pretty good job. I don't think it's their fault necessarily that the wins aren't coming. I don't even know whose fault it really is. It's more just of a team construct. Like they have some other numbers, but I don't think it's on them on why the Raptors are losing.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at it. Like you said, it's a bit of the information gathering phase. And Darko Rakovic hasn't been shy to mention that he's going to be putting players this season in position to kind of test them. You see it with the rookies, with Jamal Shed, Jonathan Mobo, like Jamison Battle. He knows those are usually, it's a combination that's going to be losing minutes, whoever he puts them with, but he knows they need to be tested in those situations. And they've shown flashes at sometimes and they've won some minutes. So I think it's the same approach he's taking with Gradey and with RJ is like, look, we know we're asking a lot of you guys right now, and I do think they are truly, but I don't think there's also much of a choice. And for a rebuilding team, like you said, Coty, it is about information gathering, see what happens when you kind of take the training wheels off. And God knows these two have no training wheels on for them right now. They've been put in pretty much every situation and been asked to figure it out. So I think that's something that is gonna hopefully pay dividends in the long run for them. But something you mentioned, and I did want to talk about it. I thought it'd be a little fun to kind of go into this. Scottie Barnes and his off court looks, or I guess one of them is technically on the court. But before we do, we did get a bit of an update. If you weren't aware, Scottie Barnes has been missing some time due to an orbital fracture he suffered against the Denver Nuggets. He took an inadvertent elbow from Nikola Jokic. And before the game in Boston, Darko Rajakovic did talk to media and he provided a bit of an update saying that he's progressing. He's feeling much better. We've seen him on the sidelines, obviously. But the last thing he mentioned is that Scottie is not cleared for contact yet, so it's still a bit of a TBD of when he'll be back. But until then, he's been kind of getting the fits off. We saw that he had the mask on. The Raptors posted a nice like side angle picture of him, looked very Batman-esque. I know Samson Folk was very quick on that edit to kind of show he looked like Batman. Earlier in the week against the Milwaukee Bucks, he was dressed up. I think the only way you can describe it is like the character Arthur from the cartoon show. He even responded to a picture on Twitter of his outfit with the Arthur Fist meme. So I think he's buying into it. Also, that was the game where Bruno Fernando just dunked all over Giannis, and you got a great Scottie reaction. So I think that plays a role in that. And then against the Celtics, he went full Peaky Blinders. Bruce Wayne, I think, is the way you want to describe it. He had an oversized blazer on, and I'm almost certain there were shoulder pads in there, and just a white dress shirt, a tie, a very long like blazer coat, by the way. So yeah, Scottie's been getting his fits off. So I want to know from you, Coty, and the people in the comment section. Please let us know your thoughts as well. Like, what was your favorite Scottie off-court look from these last couple days?
Okay, real quick, I am underqualified to be talking about fits. I throw on a sweater and sweats and I call it a day. So
I'm with you.
whatever I say, take with a grain of salt, but I'm I'm going with the Arthur fit. I mean, I don't know if that was the intention. Was that the intention?
I don't think so. I think he just played into it after. If it was the intention, it was. I think it was subtle enough that it didn't come across as he was basically trying to do that.
That's what I mean.
It's like Halloween though, so it'd be kind of weird if he was really just inspired by Arthur.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it might be a little bit about that. I don't know. I thought it was entertaining. To be honest, it didn't really even click for me until I saw people on Twitter like saying whatever about it. But I'll give them that because the blazer last night, like I don't even know what that was. Like, is that what the kids are dripping out in nowadays? Like,
Kids
I
are
don't
dripping.
even
How
know.
old are you, Cody? You cannot be calling people kids yet.
I think I'm his age. I think we're the same age. So man, I should know, but no. Nah, I'll go with the Arthur fit because I don't know what last night's was. That to me looked wild, but I mean
Yeah.
that's just me.
Yeah, Scottie, if you watched him at all this season with the time that he's missed, he's had some pretty fun outfits to kind of get on the sideline. He wore like a biker fit, I think, a couple weeks ago as well. And I think maybe his union rep, Garrett Temple, has been getting to him a little. He's been dressing a little snazzier. Again, the Arthur fit, a little sweater with a dress shirt. He's getting a
Yeah.
little fancier. And then again, the Peaky Blinders Bruce Wayne outfit, a little suit and tie. Maybe his union rep Garrett Temple has kind of been talking to him about dressing a little bit more formal. But for me, it is the Bruce Wayne fit. I just find it really funny. Again, that blazer coat thing was so long. I think someone called him John Wilkes Booth at one point. And again, just the oversized shoulder pads with it. It's very much Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne. It's not even like any Bruce Wayne just because he's wearing a suit. He just looks a little grungy and a little just darker with that suit on. And then, like, again, he has a pop blood vessel in his eye, so it's red
Yeah.
right now, too. So it gives me serious Gotham vibes. And with the 2-12 Raptors, it's basically like we're in Gotham City right now with what's going on there. So I'll go with the Bruce Wayne fit. But Cody, did you have any final thoughts on this week's of action from the Raptors that you wanted to point out? I know there's no good segue there.
I was gonna say I was interested to see how you're gonna get out of that. Nah, I think we're all good. I think us having to talk about the fits kind of explains how the basketball's been. But it's really they are in these games and they are right there. And like you said, a win or two would be nice. Like that would have been a big win for the group. You know what I mean? Just like bringing the guys together. We take down the defending champs because they're like this close in like every damn game, man. And because like yeah, even if you finish with the worst record in the NBA, ask the Detroit Pistons
Yeah.
how that's been working out. They're finally maybe getting over the hump this year a little bit. I think they've had improved basketball now. But like they get the fifth overall pick every year when they finish with the worst record. You know what I mean? So just because you get 12, 13, 14 wins on the season doesn't mean you're gonna get Cooper Flag. So yeah, a win or two every now and then would be nice.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point to end it on. And I think people need to remember the odds have flattened. Like you said, the Detroit Pistons have been trying this whole we're going to be the worst in the league and have it pay off, and it hasn't. And if nothing will derail a rebuild faster and your good positive development faster than a couple drafts not going your way, you just ask the Raptors from this past draft. Although the draft class hasn't been the flashiest, I think they still probably would have had things end differently when it was all said and done. So we'll see how that goes moving forward for them. But now I think it's time we transition into some 905 talk, Cody. I know you and me both love watching the 905. It's part of our coverage. And I think we bring some of the best 905 coverage that is offered around the Toronto area for this team. And if you weren't able to watch the games for anyone listening or watching, the 905 did suffer back-to-back losses to the College Park Skyhawks. And honestly, both games were pretty similar. There were some untimely runs by College Park that cost the 905, despite them making some late pushes to keep things interesting. And we ended up seeing some quality performances throughout it. DJ Carden had a near triple double in his one game that he did play. Kennedy Chandler continues to lead the team in scoring. And Quincy Guerrier and Charlie Brown had some of their best performances with the 905 this season through those two games. But ultimately, the 905 did go 0-2 over the last 7 days. They're now 1-2 overall. They do have a couple games this week starting on Sunday. But Cody, I want to just jump to you and say, did anything stand out to you from this week with the 905?
Yeah, there was a couple things. You mentioned the players that have stood out. I think the guard duo of Chandler and Carr, and we're going to be talking about them
A
all year
lot,
because
yeah.
they are the driving force of offense on this team. Yeah, Chandler, like you mentioned, leading the team in scoring, 22 points, 7.7 assists, 4.5 rebounds, 2.5 steals, and a block per game. He he's fast, man. Like he pushes the pace. He's picking up ball handlers full court, which is what the Raptors are doing up top. And he gets to the paint frequently. One thing with him I would like to see is just we need to see the three-point shot be a bit better.
Yeah.
Under 30% for him from three, and as a 6'1" guard, that's gonna be I mean, that's gonna be important. I don't think you can shoot under 30% and be that small unless you're like a Jamal Shed where you just are such a good point of attack defender where you can make up for it. I will say Chandler, he gets into the paint like very often and very well. For the most part, he finishes pretty well. He's almost shooting 50% from the field, and that's with shooting under 30% from three. I think he's crafty finishing. He's a really good passer too. Like
Yeah.
he makes some crazy passes. Like Carton is averaging more assists than him, but I think Chandler makes the higher degree of difficulty of passes. And then speaking of Carton, who I'm not sure if you mentioned, he missed the second game against College Park with a sprained ankle.
Hmm.
Looked like I mean, this is just me. I think there was a tough slip in the first game against College Park that I caught where people were slipping all over the court in that
Yeah.
game. I don't know what was going on there, but he took it was a rough slip. He finished the game, but they held him out here. We'll see how long until he comes back. I'd love for him to not miss very many games. We don't want to see that injury bug starting to come down
Please, let's not even
the
put that in the air.
Mississauga. Yeah. But he has been shooting the stripes out of the ball. 46% from downtown on 6.5 attempts. So he's he's been great. And then Quincy Guerrier, who maybe you can touch on him as well because I've loved him. He started in all three games, averaging 16.5 points. He's leading the team in rebounds, nearly nine, couple assists, a steal per game. He's physical, man. He's athletic, can guard multiple positions. And one thing I love about him, he plays his role to a T. Like he
Yeah.
knows what he is, what he isn't, and that's great. If he can shoot the three a bit better, 30% right now through the first three games, ooh,
Yeah, it'll go a
he's
long
it.
way. I think the 905 as a whole, like obviously you want to see the 3-point shooting kind of take up a little bit. They've had stretches where they've been good. Obviously, Tyreek Key is a guy who just shoots the lights out of the ball for the most part. He didn't have a crazy efficient game his second game against College Park, but obviously we saw he hit that game winner for the 905 in their lone win of the season. But I think you're right. Guerrier is a guy who is a ultimate role player. He's a glue guy. He connects this roster. He can play bigger when he needs to, like you said, leading the team in rebounds. But then he's also versatile enough to kind of space the floor and knock down a shot from beyond the 3-point line once in a while. I think he's a really fun player, and I think that's all the more reason why the 905 are really going to miss him if he does end up leaving. He is on the preliminary roster for the FIBA AmeriCup qualifiers with Team Canada, and that starts in a couple days. And if he does make the final roster for his FIBA duties, the 905 are going to have a task ahead of them to replace him and kind of see what they can fill out in that regard. And he's not the only person they're going to have to replace because we haven't mentioned him to this point, but Brandon Carlson, the 905 starting center, the 7-footer out of Utah, did get picked up by the Oklahoma City Thunder. He was signed to a standard NBA contract by the Thunder. Obviously, they are dealing with some front court injuries. Chet Holmgren's out for a couple months with a hip fracture. Isaiah Hartenstein has been dealing with a hand injury. And Jalen Williams, not J-Dub, but the other Jalen Williams, he's been out with a calf strain as well. So their tallest starter right now is 6'6", Jalen Williams. So you can see why they would kind of like this option of bringing in a 7-footer who's dynamic. He's a bit in the Chet mold, in my opinion, just being able to shoot the ball. He's a willing defender. I don't think he's near the defender that Chet is, obviously. That's almost a DPOY level guy, but Brandon Carlson has been good in that regard. He's averaging 1.7 blocks, nearly 14 points, 9 rebounds with the 905 while shooting over 40% from three. And OKC basically took a flyer on the guy without having to kind of empty their war chest a little bit. And that basically gives Brandon Carlson a potentially really fun opportunity. So while it does suck for the 905, it seems like he may get some shine there with the Thunder, Cody. Where do you see this?
Yeah, congrats to Brandon for getting back into the NBA. I mean, it must have been hard, to get waived off that two-way contract by the Raps. So happy for him. And yeah, you mentioned it, pretty much in the Chet role, right? Can block some shots, can hit the three. Obviously, nowhere near the player as Chet is, because Chet is just fantastic. But yeah, it wasn't going to take long before he got scooped up. Honestly, it was pretty surprising that he made it all the way to the 905 in the first place as an affiliate player. But if for whatever reason, OKC gets healthy or things don't work out for Brandon and he ends up coming back to the G League, 905 do own his rights. So
Yeah.
we could be seeing him. He just had to get picked. He was too good. He got picked up before the home opener, man. I just wanted to talk to him, but no, happy for Brandon, obviously. But now, 905 are gonna have to fill that role. They have ended up signing Vance Jackson Jr. To the roster spot, who was in the team at camp, one of the last cuts. So he's with the squad now, 6'9", 6'10", a bit of a bigger body. Uh, but it looks like it might be Ulrich Shamshay season. And I mean, Zulfi, if you want to touch on his last game, because his best game of the year against College Park Skyhawks.
Yeah, it was a very impressive game from him, especially on the offensive end. I think we've all seen what he is as a defender. He's averaging over 2 blocks a game right now when he's playing less than 20 minutes. But against College Park, he had 12 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 blocks. And he was everywhere on the floor. And offensively, you saw a bit more confidence, a bit more comfortability in the where he needs to be. And again, just the activity is rising. And I think I always just like to provide the context. He is the youngest player that was drafted. He is 18 years old. So I may not necessarily be in the boat that it's Ulrich Shamshay time, let's unleash the beast type of thing. It would be a lot of fun. I don't know if that's necessarily setting him up for success. I think conventional wisdom would back me up there. But I think an uptick in a role is kind of where this is trending. Again, his numbers in under 20 minutes, I think, are kind of like solid. 4.7 points isn't all that much, but for what his role is on offense, the guy barely touches the ball when it's not for a rebound or he's handing it off to somebody. He's still trying to kind of figure things out where he goes. But I think he's gonna see a heightened role, but the 905 do have some question marks when it comes to the front court. Like you said, with Vance Jackson Jr. being added, you're still losing Quincy Guerrier and then Brandon Carlson, so you're gonna have to fill a spot somewhere. So I think I do expect at least one more move with that roster spot. But Ulrich Shamshay, I think, has also been provided with a bit of an opportunity. That game against College Park, the second one that is, was very encouraging. It was his best offensive performance. We'll see where that goes. And if he can kind of start to bring it along to where the defense has been, because I'm willing to say the defense for the most part has been downright special at times.
I mean, yeah, I think he had 4 blocks against College Park, and you can see when he gets the timing right and he's going up and contesting, it's tough to get a shot over him, man. Like, he's athletic and his motor is just like always running. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. And you'll always catch him like in transition when he starts sprinting. He's moving. Like, he's fast. So
Yeah.
he moves the feet well. It's just, can he put it together? And honestly, they've been taking it pretty slow with him, like you've been mentioning. I don't even know if they'll start him. Like, the 905 got a
I'm
game.
not sure either.
They got a early afternoon game here today on Sunday, November 17th. So my guess would be Dylan Disu starts his second game. I mean, just with Carlson gone, it's going to be the fourth starting lineup for the 905 in 4 games, which in the G League, it doesn't really matter, but it's just it's something interesting to follow. So And like you mentioned at the top, if you want to keep following the 905, stay with us, man. I don't think anybody's doing it better. We're gonna have boots on the ground once they're back in Mississauga. Um, I'm doing a weekly preview piece every week to I recap the last week and then I take a look at what's happening this week. I don't think anybody else is doing that. So check out Raptors Republic and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Run it back. We're here. Like Zulfi, Kyle, they are doing just as much as work as anybody. So we're happy to keep covering them. And hey, if you do want to watch, well, I guess they won't see this before the game today, but former 905ers, three of them on the Capital City Go-Go in the next couple of days here. Mo Gay, Kyra Lewis Jr., and Justin Champagny. So we'll see if they end up making an appearance. But yeah, it's fun times in the 905. Already one call up, so it's doing its job, right? They're doing their job.
Yeah. It's a like I mentioned this in the piece that I wrote, kind of reacting to Brandon Carlson being dealt that like if Sam Presti comes to your team and says, "I want your guy," again, it sucks that he was poached, but it's kind of a good sign because that dude is a great talent evaluator, and if he sees talent on your roster in your farm system, maybe that raises the question to some people that well, why wasn't he a two-way player? You can have that conversation for roster spots. They waived him to make room for Bruno Fernando and Jamison Battle, who supposedly just won the camp competition. In all fairness to him. So I think it's still a positive that your farm system is starting to grow again. People around the league are noticing it. And that's, like you said, Cody, that is what the G League is about. And if a guy gets called up and it's not with your team, it is unfortunate, but he just got an opportunity to play in the NBA. And I think that's super awesome for Brandon Carlson. And hopefully that's more signs of the 905 kind of being able to develop players at that level and go back to those Norman Powells, those OG Ananobis, those Pascal Siakams and Fred VanVleets, kind of making those guys NBA quality players. So we'll see what happens there. But like you mentioned, Cody, best 905 coverage there is. We'll keep you guys up in the know with that. But that'll wrap up our 905 report for this week. But we'll be back next week to cover all the action that went underway. But now, Cody, I think it's time for us to look ahead at the schedule moving forward for the next week. And
Yes.
after yet another winless week filled with some entertaining hoops, I think it's going to be another positive week in terms of fun basketball. I think these are fun teams to play against. You have three games for the Raptors this week, two against the East, and again a West squad sandwiched. It's a bit of a weird schedule for them, where they with the East-West split. I think that's
Lay it out for me. Lay it out for me. What do we got?
Okay, so on Monday, the Raptors host Pascal Siakam and the Indiana Pacers. It's always fun to welcome Pascal back, and they haven't really been the same squad as they were last year. They're not the top offense; they're more middle of the pack. So we'll see how that goes. And then after that, Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves, without Karl Anthony Towns, make their way to Scotiabank Arena. Last year, beating the Wolves early in the season was a bit of a statement win for the Raptors. Some would have said it was impressive. Unfortunately, that statement ended up being let's blow it all up and start over. But hey, it was still a fun win for the Raptors at the end of the day. And after that, the Raptors, at the time of recording, are still taking on the undefeated 14-0 Cleveland Cavaliers. They do play a game Sunday before this goes up. I don't have much faith in the Charlotte Hornets to kind of end that streak. I'm sorry if it happens. I will kind of eat my words. But supposedly the Raptors will still be taking on arguably the best team in the league right now. They are the number one offense. They've been putting up 140 points almost consistently at this point. It's kind of insane to look at what the Cavaliers are doing. So yeah, they're going to take on the Pacers, the Timberwolves, and the Cavs this week. A pretty fun schedule. So Cody, what's standing out to you for this week?
Yeah, fun but tough. Fun but tough. Again, like this start. I mean, I think it just goes to show the parity in the NBA. Like maybe it's just because the Raptors are one of the worst teams in the league, but it just seems like every team just has guys. And
Mhm.
like you could like even the Pistons, like I mentioned, like are on the come up. Like I like what the Hornets are doing. The Pacers are still like they're a middle of the road team, but like they were just in the conference finals last year. So it's gonna be fun to see Pascal Siakam taking on the Raptors again. I'm sure he will kill us. I'm sure that'll be what happens because it just seems that's what former Raptors do. I just anybody, I guess, against your former team, it just seems like that's the case. But going forward, here's something I'm keeping an eye on is let me lay out some numbers because the Raptors have had the most possessions in the NBA this season, two more than the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are 14-0. Why? They're averaging the second most shots per game, 93.1. They're a top 10 rebounding team. They're second in offensive rebounds. and they play with the top half of the league in pace. So they're generating all these looks. They're getting all these possessions. They just got to finish them. And I think that's going to come around because, I mean, look what the Cleveland Cavaliers are doing. They're getting just as many possessions as Toronto, less. It's just, and it's crazy. 14-0, 2-11. I know that there's more to basketball than
A little
just,
bit, yeah.
than just possessions. But uh, I feel like the way they're playing, the way they're flying the ball around and assists, like they're playing the right way, man. And that's, I say this every week, like, oh, they're playing the right way. And I just wanted that to keep going. Like, yes, the competitive losses are, it's like the perfect tank, like we're saying, but would like to get a win or two. But, and that would come from, they are one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the league, 28th in the NBA, nearly 75%. High foul rate, second most in the NBA. And their bottom 5 team is shooting the 3. Bottom 10 team in turnovers per game. Not the best 3-point shooting team either. So there are some things I would like to see cleaned up for the team to start winning those games. And I think it can be cleaned up. Like, free throw shooting is something that you can improve on. You know,
100%.
it's not fouling is something that you can improve on. So I think if they clean a couple of those areas, they could easily, I mean, well, I said they're 9-5 against the spread. Like, I think they could be a 500 team right now, no question.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I think the biggest takeaway from what you said, Coty, is like building those right habits. You keep mentioning it, just play the right way, and that's what you want to see from them moving forward. Just continuing that. And for me, it's kind of on the defensive side. I know you mentioned a bit of the offensive numbers, but like it's been improving. They're no longer last in the league. We'll see how that lasts against some of these top offenses, especially against the Cavaliers. But again, Cleveland is similar to Boston, where they are the top 3-point percentage team. They don't take as many as Boston, but they convert at a high rate. Can the defense do what you did against Boston? I think that'll be another stride in the right direction. So building good habits, I think, is the way that I'm approaching it. But Coty, I think that's a good spot to end it off on. We looked at the week, we see the fun basketball to be had, and hopefully everyone is caught up on all the Raptors action, and we covered everything we could for you guys. Again, let us know in the comments, what was your favorite Scottie fit? I do want to know what people think. But we'll be back next week as always. Hopefully Kyle will be back to join us to kind of chat about things. But before we go, like I like to always say, like, share, and subscribe. Let us know what you think. And again, until November 30th, 2 minutes of your time filling out a survey will go a long way for us. The links are in the description for you to kind of get that information. It's also on our website, and we will make it worth your while. Besides the coverage getting better, there's a chance you could win $250 for just 2 minutes of your time and letting us know what you think. Again, what you like, what you don't like, and how we can become your go-to spot. Now, with that being said, we will be back next week to talk everything about Raptors basketball. And when we do, we'll run it back